"That'll be $3.50, honey," I said, smiling at the student in front of me. Another day serving lunch at Westbrook Academy, where the children of CEOs and senators learn calculus in classrooms with ocean views. Madison, my stepdaughter, walked past with her usual crowd of friends, deliberately avoiding eye contact. I caught fragments of their conversation. "God, so embarrassing." "And can't believe your dad married." I kept my smile firmly in place, just like I have for the past 5 years. The diamond ring on my finger caught the fluorescent light, the only hint that I might be something more than what these teenagers saw. "Thanks, Mrs. Roberts." The boy I'd just served beamed at me. Thomas, a scholarship student, always polite. "The mac and cheese is awesome today." "Secret ingredient is love." I winked, though actually it was truffle oil and aged Gruyere. The school kitchen was better equipped than most restaurants. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from James, my husband. "We need to talk about Madison." "My office after your shift." I typed back a quick oak between serving portions. James was the head of Westbrook's mathematics department, which was how we'd met 6 years ago when I first started working here. Back then, I was just the new lunch lady with a knack for turning institutional food into something special. He didn't know about my culinary degree from Le Cordon Bleu or the successful restaurants I'd owned in New York. Just like Madison didn't know that her poor stepmother had sold her restaurant empire for 8 figures after burning out from 20 years of 100-hour weeks. The lunch rush continued, but I kept catching snippets of Madison's conversation with her friends. Today seemed worse than usual. "At least she's not like teaching here," Madison was saying. "I mean, could you imagine? But Daddy says she likes simple work or whatever." Simple work. If only she knew how much calculation went into planning menus that satisfied both picky teenagers and the school's rigorous nutritional standards. Or how much of my own money I poured into upgrading the kitchen equipment and sourcing better ingredients. "Madison," I heard her friend Sophie whisper, not quietly enough, "isn't your tuition like $50,000? How can your dad afford it on a teacher's salary?" "Trust fund from my mom," Madison replied promptly. "She was like super rich before she died." That was the story James had let her believe. Easier than explaining that her stepmother's simple job was just a cover, that the trust fund was actually my money, carefully channeled through a series of accounts to preserve the fiction that Madison's lifestyle came from her late mother's family. The lunch period ended, and I started cleanup while my staff, all professionally trained chefs, who thought they were working for the school, handled the prep for tomorrow. James was waiting in his office when I arrived, looking troubled. At 45, he still had the handsome features that had first caught my eye, but today they were creased with worry. "I heard her," he said without preamble. "What she was saying about you." I sank into the leather chair across from his desk. "It's fine. She's 16. Everything embarrasses her." "It's not fine." He ran a hand through his salt and pepper hair. "You've put up with this for 5 years, Sarah. You've paid for everything. Her tuition, her horses, her summer programs in Europe. And she treats you like the lunch lady?" I smiled wryly. "I chose this, remember? After the burnout, the anxiety attacks, the 3 months in the hospital. I wanted simple. Peaceful. Simple doesn't mean being disrespected by your own stepdaughter." I touched the pendant at my neck, a small golden whisk, the only piece of jewelry I kept from my restaurant days. "She's still grieving her mother, James. Finding out I'm not who she thinks I am. It could hurt her more. Or it could teach her a valuable lesson about judging people." He leaned forward. "Sarah, I love that you found peace serving lunch to privileged kids. I love that you use your wealth to secretly make their meals better, to fund scholarships they don't know about, to support families who can barely afford the uniforms. But Madison needs to learn that worth isn't measured by job titles." "What are you suggesting?" He pulled out a folder, bank statements, property deeds, news articles about the legendary Sarah Chen, the chef who built a restaurant empire before disappearing from the culinary world 5 years ago. "Parents' night is next week," he said. "The school's looking for donors for the new culinary arts program. I think it's time for Sarah Chen to make a comeback, not as a chef, but as a benefactor." My heart raced. "James, let me finish. You won't have to go back to that life. But Madison should know that her lunch lady stepmother is the one making her dreams possible. That every time she mocks you for serving food, she's mocking the very person who makes sure she can attend this school. and as she resents me more for keeping the truth from her. Then she'll learn another valuable lesson about humility, judgment, and the price of pride. He reached across the desk, taking my hand. Sarah Chin Roberts, you're the most amazing woman I've ever known. Let our daughter see that. Before I could respond, there was a knock at the door. Madison burst in, designer backpack slung over one shoulder. Daddy, can I? Oh, she stopped short seeing me. I didn't know you were busy. I started to stand, to give them privacy like I usually did, but James's hand tightened on mine. Actually, he said, this concerns you too. Sit down, Madison. There's something you need to know about Sarah. Madison's perfectly sculpted eyebrows drew together. What about her? James opened the folder, and I watched my stepdaughter's face as he began to tell her exactly who her lunch lady stepmother really was. Sometimes the simplest jobs hide the most complex truths, and sometimes the best lessons come served with a side of humble pie. Madison stared at the magazine covers spread across her father's desk. My face, younger, dressed in chef's whites, stared back from Forbes, Time, and Bon Appetit. New York's restaurant queen builds $300 million empire, one headline declared. This can't be. She picked up a detailed account statement, her hands shaking. These numbers are real, James said quietly. Every penny of your trust fund, your tuition, your summer in Paris last year. It all came from Sarah, not your mother's family. I watched the color drain from Madison's face as she connected the dots. But you serve lunch. You wear a hairnet. You choose to, I finished gently. After 20 years of running restaurants, dealing with critics, managing thousands of employees, I burned out. Ended up in a hospital with severe anxiety. That's when I realized I needed a change. So you sold everything to become a lunch lady? Her voice dripped with disbelief. No, James corrected. She sold everything to find peace. And then she chose to use her wealth and expertise to quietly make life better for hundreds of students, including you. Madison's eyes darted to the financial statements again. These donations to the school, the new science lab last year, the scholarship fund. All Sarah, James confirmed. She's Westbrook's largest private donor, has been since before we were married. A tear splashed onto the glossy magazine cover. Why didn't you tell me? I leaned forward. Because you needed to grieve your mother without complications. Because I didn't want you to feel obligated to love me because of money. And honestly, because I thought you might figure it out on your own. What do you mean? Madison, honey, did you really think public school cafeteria food includes Wagyu beef sliders and truffle mac and cheese? Did you never wonder why Westbrook's lunch program is featured in educational magazines? She blushed. I just thought, it's an expensive school. The food budget is actually quite modest, James interjected. Sarah supplements it with her own money, just like she supplements your trust fund, your college savings, and half the school's operational costs. Madison's face crumpled. All those times I made fun of you, called you lunch lady in front of my friends, said you weren't good enough for Dad. Were moments you'll learn from, I finished. We all have those moments, sweetheart. What matters is what we do after we know better. But why keep working in the kitchen? You could do anything. I am doing what I want, I explained. Every day, I get to feed hundreds of growing minds without the stress of running a business empire. I get to make sure kids like Thomas, who's on scholarship, eat as well as kids with trust funds. It's not simple work, it's just quieter. James pulled out one more document. There's something else you should see. The plans for Westbrook's new culinary arts center. Madison scanned the paper, her eyes widening. This would be amazing. Professional-grade kitchens, classes with real chefs. Actually, I smiled, classes with me. If you approve, of course. It would mean everyone knowing who I really am. You teach? She looked up, really seeing me for the first time. But you said you didn't want to go back to that life. Teaching a few classes is different from running restaurants. Besides, I reached across the desk and squeezed her hand. I thought it might be something we could do together. You've always loved cooking, even if you never wanted to admit it to your friends. A flash of memory crossed her face, the time she'd lingered in the kitchen at home, watching me cook. The question she'd asked when she thought no one was paying attention. I did want to learn, but I thought, she swallowed hard. I thought it would make me like you. The you I thought you were. And now? Now I realize I should have been begging to be more like you all along." She stood up suddenly, circling the desk to hug me. "I'm so sorry. For everything." I held her close, feeling years of tension dissolve. Nothing to be sorry for. We all have growing up to do, even adults who hide their past in hairnets. James cleared his throat. "There's one more thing. Parents' night next week." Madison pulled back, wiping her eyes. "Everyone's going to know, aren't they, that I've been awful to my stepmother, who's actually a famous chef and millionaire." "They don't have to know everything," I assured her. "But yes, Sarah Chen will be making an appearance as the donor for the new culinary program. Think you can handle that?" She straightened her shoulders, looking so much like her father in that moment. "Actually, could I introduce you? Maybe talk about how you've inspired me to consider culinary school." James and I exchanged surprised looks. Culinary school. "I've been researching it secretly," she admitted, "but I thought you'd both be disappointed in me. That it wasn't prestigious enough." I laughed, a real, belly laugh that echoed off the office walls. "Oh honey, wait until you see the prestige in creating something that brings joy to others. It's better than any trust fund." Speaking of funds, James added, "Maybe it's time Sarah showed you how to manage your own money. Real wealth isn't just about having it, it's about using it wisely." Madison nodded eagerly, then paused. Can we still have our Sunday morning pancake sessions, even when everyone knows you're not just the lunch lady?" "Especially then," I promised. "But maybe we'll upgrade from regular maple syrup to the single origin aged maple syrup I've been hiding in the back of the pantry." She groaned. "There are probably so many cooking secrets you've been holding back." "Just a few hundred." I winked. "But we have plenty of time to cover them all. Starting with why I really use truffle oil in the school mac and cheese." As we left Jane's office together, I heard whispers from passing students, saw them noting Madison's red eyes and my arm around her shoulders. But for once she didn't pull away or make an excuse. Sometimes the greatest recipes require time to perfect, and sometimes the best meals are the ones served with a side of truth. Parents' night arrived with the usual parade of designer outfits and luxury cars. But this time, I wasn't in the kitchen. Instead, I stood in the auditorium wings wearing a tailored suit that cost more than my yearly cafeteria salary. "Ready?" Madison squeezed my hand. She'd insisted on helping me get ready, doing my makeup and styling my hair. The transformation from lunch lady to restaurant mogul had left her speechless. "Are you?" I squeezed back. "Once I walk out there, everyone will know I've been an entitled brat." She smiled wryly. "Good. Maybe other kids will learn from my mistake." The headmaster was finishing his speech about the new Culinary Arts Center. "And now, Madison Roberts would like to introduce our generous benefactor." Madison straightened her shoulders and walked onto the stage. Gone was the self-conscious teenager who'd once hidden from me in the hallways. In her place stood a young woman ready to face her own prejudices. "Most of you know me," she began. "And most of you have heard me complain about my stepmother working in our school kitchen." Nervous laughter rippled through the audience. What none of you knew, what I didn't know until recently, was that every lunch she served was a masterclass in humility, dignity, and the true meaning of success. She gestured toward the wings. "Please welcome my stepmother, Sarah Chen Roberts, James Roberts' wife, my personal culinary inspiration, and the former CEO of Chen Restaurant Group." The audience's reaction as I walked out was everything Madison had predicted. Gasps, whispers, and dropped jaws from parents who had dismissed me as just the lunch lady. Sophie's mother actually spilled her champagne. "Thank you, Madison," I said, hugging her before she left the stage. Facing the crowd, I smiled. "Yes, I'm the one who's been serving your children lunch, and I wouldn't have it any other way." I explained my vision for the culinary program, not just cooking classes, but lessons in nutrition, business management, and social responsibility. How every student would learn to cook, but also to appreciate the dignity of service and the value of work at every level. And yes, I concluded, I'll still be running the cafeteria, though perhaps without the hairnet now that my cover's blown. The laughter was genuine this time, followed by thunderous applause. As I left the stage, I saw Thomas, my scholarship student, beaming from the back where he worked as a server for the event. "Does this mean the mac and cheese will get even better, Mrs. Roberts?" he called out. "Come by the kitchen tomorrow," I winked. "I'll teach you the secret recipe." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of handshakes and conversations. Parents who'd never given me a second glance now wanted to discuss investment opportunities. Students who barely looked at me suddenly remembered my name. But the real moment came later, at home, when Madison appeared in my kitchen wearing pajamas and a sheepish expression. "Can't sleep?" I asked, pulling out 2 mugs for hot chocolate, the real kind, with French chocolate and fresh cream. "I keep thinking about all the times I was horrible to you," she admitted, sliding onto a bar stool. "How you just took it, all while making sure I had everything I needed." I handed her a mug. "That's what mothers do, step or otherwise." "Is that why you didn't tell me sooner? Because you were trying to be a good mom?" "Partly," I nodded. "But also because I needed to be sure I could be happy with my new life before I explained it to anyone else. Success isn't just about money or fame, Madison. It's about finding peace with who you are." She sipped her chocolate thoughtfully. "Is that why you're really starting the culinary program, to share that lesson?" "That, and because watching you discover your passion for cooking has reminded me why I fell in love with it in the first place." I pulled out a wrapped package, "Which is why I want you to have this." Inside was my old chef's coat from Le Cordon Bleu, carefully preserved. "It's time for a new generation to wear it," I said softly. Madison hugged me, chocolate forgotten. "I love you, Mom," she whispered, the first time she'd ever called me that. Sometimes the best recipes aren't found in cookbooks, but in the moments we least expect. And sometimes the finest ingredients for happiness are simply truth, forgiveness, and a perfectly made cup of hot chocolate. "Excuse me, this machine needs wiping down." Emma's voice dripped with fake politeness as she gestured to the elliptical trainer. She was wearing the latest Lululemon outfit, her perfect ponytail swinging as she pointedly avoided eye contact with me. "Right away," I replied, keeping my voice neutral as I moved to clean the equipment. Just another day at Flex Fitness, where my stepdaughter pretended we'd never met. Through the gym's floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see my reflection. Gray polo shirt with the Flex Fitness logo, khaki pants, sensible shoes. Nothing like the power suits I used to wear when I was building this company from the ground up. Emma's friends clustered nearby, their whispers carrying clearly across the gym floor. "God, isn't it weird that your stepmom works here?" "So weird," Emma agreed, shooting me a glance. "Dad says she needs to stay busy or whatever. Like, get a real job." If they bothered to look closer, they might have noticed my sensible shoes were handcrafted Italian leather, or that the simple silver band on my finger was from Cartier. But people see what they expect to see, and everyone expected to see just another middle-aged woman cleaning gym equipment. My phone buzzed. A text from Robert, Emma's father. "We need to talk. Board meeting footage just leaked. Emma's going to find out." My heart skipped. The quarterly board meeting had been yesterday, where I'd appeared virtually as Alexandra Chen, founder and CEO of Flex Fitness. Usually, I managed to keep my corporate identity separate from my local gym presence. But yesterday, Emma's latest Instagram post about her embarrassing stepmom had been playing on my mind. I've been less careful than usual about the camera angle, about hiding my face. "When?" I texted back. "Tonight. Videos already circulating in the business news. It's time, Alex." I watched Emma and her friends move to the juice bar, the one I'd specifically added to this location because she once mentioned wanting one. Every smoothie she ordered, every new piece of equipment installed, every luxury amenity, all carefully chosen by the stepmother she was ashamed to claim. "Mrs. Chen." A voice interrupted my thoughts. Thomas, one of our scholarship members, stood nervously nearby. "The boxing class schedule. Is there a problem?" I smiled at the young man who reminded me so much of myself 20 years ago, hungry for opportunity, willing to work for it. "They moved my favorite class to peak hours." "I can't. I mean, my membership only covers off-peak." "Let me handle that." I made a note to adjust his membership level. Another of my secret projects, identifying promising young people and quietly upgrading their access. "Thanks, Mrs. Chen. You know, my mom used to clean gyms too. Now she owns her own fitness studio." I grinned. "Nothing wrong with honest work, is there?" "Nothing at all." He glanced at Emma's group, still loudly discussing the help by the juice bar. "Some people just don't get it." Emma's voice carried across the gym again. "I mean, she could at least work at the front desk or something. But no, she insists on cleaning. It's like she wants to embarrass me." If she only knew how many hours I'd spent on my hands and knees scrubbing gym floors when I opened my first location. How I still did it occasionally just to stay connected to every aspect of my business. How every CEO in my company was required to work in the trenches regularly. My phone buzzed again, this time with a link to a business news article. Flex Fitness CEO Alexandra Chen reveals expansion plans during quarterly board meeting. And it was my face, clearly visible in the video thumbnail. The same face that was about to clean the rowing machines. Mom? Emma's half-brother, Tyler, appeared at my elbow. At 12, he was the only one besides his father who knew the truth about my dual identity. Jessica's mom is outside throwing a fit about her membership again. Jessica's mom, Karen Williams, social chair of the country club and Emma's best friend's mother. She'd been trying to get me fired for months because I wouldn't give her free guest passes. "I'll handle it," I sighed, heading for the front desk. Karen was in full battle mode, designer handbag swinging as she berated the front desk staff. "Do you know who I am?" "I demand to speak to the owner." "I'm the manager on duty," I said calmly. "How can I help?" "You," she sneered. "I want the owner, not the cleaning lady. My daughter deserves premium membership status." "Mom," Jessica tugged at her arm. "Maybe we should." "No, I'm tired of dealing with minimum wage workers who don't understand quality service." Karen's voice rose. "Get me Alexandra Chen on the phone right now." I felt rather than saw Emma and her friends gathering to watch the show. Saw the gleam in her eyes as they anticipated Karen putting the cleaning lady in her place. "Mrs. Williams," I kept my voice level. "I'm afraid Ms. Chen isn't available for membership disputes. However, this is ridiculous. I'm calling corporate." She pulled out her phone, presumably to dial the CEO hotline that rang directly to the cell phone in my pocket. That's when Robert walked in. My husband took in the scene, Karen, red-faced and yelling, Emma and her friends watching eagerly, Tyler trying not to laugh. "Karen," he said pleasantly, "I see you've met my wife." "Yes, yes, the cleaning lady." Karen waved dismissively. "Robert, you really should speak to her about proper customer service." "Oh, I don't think that's necessary." He smiled. "Alex has been in customer service for over 20 years. Built quite an empire with it, actually." Emma's expression shifted slightly. She knew that tone in her father's voice, the one that meant something big was about to happen. In fact, Robert continued, pulling up the business news article on his phone. "She was just in the news today. Would you like to see?" Karen squinted at the screen, then at me, then back at the screen. Her face went from red to white. That's not possible." "Oh, but it is," Robert said cheerfully. "Karen Williams, meet Alexandra Chen, founder and CEO of Flex Fitness. Though you apparently prefer to call her the cleaning lady." The silence that followed was deafening. Emma's smoothie slipped from her fingers, splashing across the floor. She'd watched me clean so many times. Sometimes the best lessons about respect come with a price tag, and sometimes that price is paid in spilled smoothies and shattered assumptions. "This is a joke." Emma's voice broke the silence. "Dad, tell me this is a joke." Karen Williams had already backed away, muttering apologies as she practically dragged Jessica toward the exit. The front desk staff were trying desperately to hide their smiles. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation in my office," I suggested, gesturing toward the door marked management only, a space Emma had never seen me enter. Inside, the office told its own story. Headlines from Forbes and Business Weekly lined the walls. "Alexandra Chen, the Queen of Fitness," declared one. "Flex Fitness Revolution. How one woman changed the game," announced another. "Sit down, Emma," Robert said gently. She sank into one of the leather chairs, still staring at me like she'd never seen me before. How long?" she managed. "I founded Flex Fitness 23 years ago," I said, taking off my polo shirt to reveal the silk blouse underneath. "Started with one rundown gym and a dream. Now we have 300 locations, 15,000 employees, and," I smiled slightly, "one very surprised stepdaughter." "But you clean equipment. You wear a uniform. You let people treat you like someone less worthy because of their job." I finished. "Yes, I do. Every executive in this company works regular shifts doing every job, from cleaning to training to front desk. It keeps us connected to what matters. Emma's eyes darted to the latest Forbes cover on the wall, me in a power suit, looking nothing like the stepmother she'd been embarrassed by for the past 2 years. The boxing class Thomas takes, she said slowly. The juice bar. The new yoga studio. All because you mentioned wanting them, I nodded. I've been quietly making this location everything you dreamed of, while you dreamed of having a different stepmother. Tears welled in her eyes. Why didn't you tell me? Would it have made a difference? I asked gently. Would knowing I was rich have made me more worthy of respect? That's not. I didn't. Yes, you did, Robert interrupted. You judge Alex based on her job, just like your friends did. Just like Karen Williams did. But everyone did. Emma burst out. At school, at the country club, everyone talked about how Dad married the help. And you chose to be embarrassed instead of defending me, I said quietly. That's why I didn't tell you. I wanted to see who you really were, Emma, not who you pretend to be, for money. She flinched. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know, I sat down beside her. But sorry doesn't fix this. Actions do. What? What happens now? Well, I pulled out a folder. First, you're going to learn what it really means to run a fitness empire. Starting tomorrow, you're working here after school. Every position, just like our executives do. What? But I have dance class and social committee, and now you have a job, Robert said firmly. Time to learn what your stepmother's been trying to teach you all along. That every position has value, and every person deserves respect. Emma's phone buzzed, probably her friends, wondering what was happening behind the closed office door. She ignored it. The new fall campaign, she said suddenly. The one about breaking stereotypes in fitness, that was you. I nodded. Every model in those ads is a Flex Fitness employee, including the CEO cleaning equipment in the background of the main shot. She pulled up the ad on her phone, zooming in on the background figure she previously ignored. Oh my God. There's something else, Robert added. Show her Alex. I reached into my desk and pulled out another folder, the plans for Flex Fitness's new team wellness program. I was going to announce this next month, I explained. A comprehensive fitness and nutrition program specifically for teenagers, with mental health support and body positivity coaching. I wanted you to help design it, Emma, because despite everything, I've seen how you encourage the younger girls at the gym, how you help them with their form, how you stand up to body shamers. When they're not my stepmother, you mean, she said bitterly. We all have room to grow, I said, squeezing her hand. I didn't build this company by giving up on people. A knock at the door interrupted us. Tyler poked his head in. Mom? Karen Williams is back. She's offering to resign her membership. Tell her that won't be necessary, I said. But she's welcome to join our new community outreach program. The one where members volunteer at local shelters and soup kitchens. Emma's head snapped up. Can I help with that too? Of course. I smiled. There's a lot of work to be done, and not all of it involves cleaning equipment. She stood up, squaring her shoulders in a way that reminded me of myself at her age. I want to start now, not tomorrow. Today. You sure? Robert asked. Your friends are still out there? They're not my friends if they only like me for my family's status, she said firmly. Besides, she managed a small smile. Apparently I need to learn more about my family's actual status. I handed her a polo shirt identical to mine. First lesson. Every job matters. Ready to learn how to properly clean an elliptical. She took the shirt, then surprised me with a fierce hug. I'm so sorry, she whispered again. I'll make it right. I know you will, I hugged her back. Because under all that designer workout wear beats the heart of a true Chen woman. Strong, determined, and ready to prove herself. As we walked back onto the gym floor together, matching polos, matching purpose, I heard the whispers start again. But this time, Emma held her head high. Hey everyone, she announced to her watching friends, meet my stepmom, the real one. We've got some cleaning to do. Sometimes the best workouts strengthen more than muscles. And sometimes the heaviest weights we lift are our own prejudices. 3 months later, Emma stood beside me at the podium, her polo shirt now emblazoned with Youth Program Director beneath the Flex Fitness logo. The press conference room was packed with reporters eager to hear about our new Team Wellness initiative. Before we begin, I addressed the crowd. I'd like to share a story about how this program was born. It started with a lesson in humility. taught by a teenager who learned it herself. Emma squeezed my hand as I continued. Many of you know me as Alexandra Chen, CEO of Flex Fitness. But for 2 years, I worked anonymously at one of our locations, cleaning equipment and restocking towels. Not because I had to, but because sometimes the view from the ground shows you what you can't see from the top. The reporters leaned forward, sensing a story beyond the usual corporate press release. What they don't know, Emma stepped up to the microphone, is that I was that location's most entitled member. The one who looked down on the cleaning staff. The one who didn't know that the woman I dismissed as just the help was actually my stepmother. And the owner of the entire company. Cameras flashed as she continued. But she taught me that true leadership isn't about titles or corner offices. It's about understanding every aspect of your business, respecting every person who makes it run, and never being too proud to do the work yourself. A reporter raised her hand. Miss Chen, are you saying you didn't know your stepmother owned Flex Fitness? No. Emma smiled. I was too busy being embarrassed by her menial job to notice she was teaching me the most valuable lesson of my life. Now I'm proud to say I've worked every position in our gyms, just like our executives do, and I've learned that sometimes the most important work happens while holding a cleaning cloth. The questions flew, about the team program, about our management philosophy, about the unique mother-daughter partnership we formed. But the real story was in the details they couldn't see. Like how Emma now spent her Saturday mornings teaching fitness classes at the local youth center. How she turned her social media influence into a platform for body positivity and workplace respect. How she'd inspired a whole new generation of young members to view fitness as a journey of self-discovery rather than self-criticism. One last question, a reporter called out. What happened to the friends who used to mock your stepmother? Emma's answer was diplomatic but firm. They were invited to join our community service program. Some did, some didn't. But the real friends, the ones who matter, are the ones who clean equipment beside me and understand that no job is beneath anyone. Later in my office, Emma collapsed onto the sofa. That was intense. Welcome to corporate life, I laughed, kicking off my heels. Ready for your next challenge? She groaned. Please tell me it doesn't involve more public speaking. Actually, I pulled out a business plan. It involves opening our first teams-only Flex Fitness location. With you as the managing director. Her eyes widened. Really? Really, you've earned it, not because you're my stepdaughter, but because you've proven you understand what this company truly stands for. She was quiet for a moment, fingering the logo on her shirt. You know what's weird? I'm actually prouder of this polo than I ever was of my designer workout clothes. Because you earned it, I said simply. Every bit of respect you get now comes from who you are, not what you wear or who you know. A knock at the door revealed Tyler, also in a polo. Mom, Emma, the new equipment's here for the youth center. Need help unloading? Emma was already on her feet. But you just did a press conference, Tyler protested, in heels. She grabbed her gym shoes from under my desk. Rule number 1 of Flex Fitness. Everyone does every job. As I watched my children head off to unload trucks together, I thought about the long journey from that first rundown gym to this moment. About how success isn't just measured in locations or revenue, but in the lessons we learn and teach along the way. Sometimes the greatest strength isn't in lifting weights, but in lifting each other up. And sometimes the best business decisions aren't made in boardrooms, but in moments of genuine human connection, even if those moments happen while cleaning gym equipment. The turkey was perfect this year. After 3 decades of Thanksgiving dinners, I finally mastered the art of keeping the breast meat moist while getting that golden brown skin. Not that it mattered. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold the carving knife. Mom, let me do that, Michael said, gently taking the knife from my trembling fingers. My son, now 40, looked so much like his father it made my heart ache. The same strong jaw, the same intense brown eyes. But where James's eyes had always held shadows, Michael sparkled with warmth and success. Still can't believe you're cooking in this tiny kitchen, he commented, expertly carving the turkey. You could have a mansion by now, you know, or at least a bigger house. I wiped my hands on my apron, the same one I'd worn for 20 years of waitressing shifts. This house has everything I need. Michael's wife, Sarah, was setting the table with their 2 children, using my mismatched plates and worn silverware. She caught my eye and smiled sympathetically. She knew why I stayed in this small house, even after Michael had offered countless times to buy me a better one. This was where James had written his last letter, where he confessed everything. "Dad would be proud of you," Michael said suddenly, arranging turkey slices on a serving plate. "Building your company from nothing, taking care of Mom all these years." The words hit me like physical blows. Every compliment about his father was another knife in my heart. "Remember how he used to say, 'Dream big or go home'?" Michael continued, lost in memories he'd constructed from my careful lies. "I thought about that a lot when I was starting out." I turned away, pretending to check the stuffing. James had never said that. James had never said much of anything about dreams. He'd been too busy destroying them. "Grandma, tell us about Grandpa." 10-year-old Emma called from the table. "Daddy says he was a hero." My hands clenched on the oven mitt. Another lie. Another story I crafted to protect my son from the truth. "Your grandfather," I started, but Michael interrupted. "Dad served in Desert Storm," he told his children proudly. "He died helping his unit evacuate civilians. Mom still has his medals." The medals were real. The story wasn't. But how do you tell your child that their hero father was actually Mom? Michael's voice snapped me back to the present. "You okay?" You went pale there for a second. "Just hot from the oven," I lied. Another lie for the pile. "Let's eat before everything gets cold." Dinner proceeded normally, or as normally as it could, with my stomach in knots. Michael talked about his company's latest acquisition. Sarah shared stories about the children's school achievements, and I pushed food around my plate, wondering if this would be our last peaceful Thanksgiving together. Because I'd seen the envelope in Michael's briefcase when he arrived. The same type of envelope that had contained James's last letter, 30 years ago. After dinner, while Sarah took the kids to the living room, Michael lingered in the kitchen, helping me clean up, just like James used to do before everything fell apart. "Mom," he said finally, drying his hands. "There's something we need to discuss." My heart stopped. The stuffing was too dry, wasn't it? He didn't smile at my weak joke. Instead, he went to his briefcase and pulled out the envelope I'd been dreading. "I've been doing some research," he said quietly, "about Dad." The plate I was holding slipped from my fingers, shattering on the floor. Neither of us moved to clean it up. "Tell me what?" Michael pressed. "That he died here. That it wasn't combat that killed him." I stared at my hands, remembering how they trembled that night too, as I'd read James's final letter, as I'd made the decision that would shape the next 30 years. "Open the envelope, Mom." My head snapped up. "What?" "The envelope. Open it." His eyes, so like his father's, held mine. "It's not the police reports. Those are at home. This is something else." With shaking fingers, I opened the envelope. Inside was a single piece of paper, not the damning evidence I'd expected, but a letter. In James's handwriting. The letter I hid 3 decades ago. "Where?" My voice failed me. "Found it last month when I was helping you clean the attic." It fell out of his old military jacket. Michael's voice was gentle now. "I've read it, Mom. I know what really happened that night. What he did. What you did to protect me." The tears I'd held back for 30 years finally broke free. "I'm so sorry. I never wanted you to know. That Dad was stealing from his company. That he got caught. That he—" Michael swallowed hard. "That he took the coward's way out instead of facing the consequences." I could only nod, the old shame washing over me. "But that's not what kills me, Mom," he continued. "What kills me is knowing that you worked 3 jobs to repay money you never stole. That you let everyone believe you were just struggling to make ends meet, when really you were paying back Dad's embezzlement. That you created this whole hero story so I'd have something to be proud of, while you carried the real burden alone." Through my tears, I saw him reach for his briefcase again. "So," he said, "I have another envelope for you to open." My hands shook as I took the second envelope. It was heavier than the first, stuffed with what looked like financial documents. "Before you open it," Michael said, pulling his chair closer, "I need you to understand something. When I started my company, I did it thinking I was following Dad's example, building something from nothing, just like I thought he had." I closed my eyes, remembering all the times Michael had proudly declared he was just like Dad during his rise to success. Each time had been another knife in my heart. But I wasn't following his path at all. Michael's voice grew fierce. I was following yours. The mother who worked endless double shifts to make things right, who paid back every penny Dad stole, with interest, even though she didn't have to. I had to, I whispered. The company would have pressed charges otherwise. Your father's name would have been in all the papers. You would have known that he was a thief, a coward. Michael's hand covered mine. Instead, I grew up thinking he was a hero who died saving others, while you quietly saved us all. Sarah appeared in the doorway, took one look at the scene, and quietly closed the door, giving us privacy. She'd known the truth for months, I realized. Had helped Michael piece it together. Open the envelope, Mom. Inside were bank statements, property deeds, and investment portfolios. All in my name. The numbers made my head spin. What is this? Every penny Dad stole was $1.2 million, Michael said quietly. You paid it all back over 20 years, working yourself to the bone. Plus the interest they demanded, you paid almost $2 million total. I nodded. The numbers had been burned into my brain, each payment a step toward redemption for a crime I hadn't committed. So, he continued, I did some calculating. If you had invested that money instead of paying back Dad's debt, with compound interest over 30 years, he pointed to a number at the bottom of one statement. This is what you would have had. The figure made me gasp. Michael? No. Yes. And that's exactly what I've put in your name. Plus the house you should have had. The retirement you deserved. Everything Dad's actions stole from you. I can't accept this. I pushed the papers away. It's too much. It's not enough, he countered. Do you know what I remember most from my childhood? Not Dad's supposed heroics. I remember you coming home at midnight from your second job, still in your waitress uniform, helping me with my homework. I remember you missing my school plays because you were working extra shifts at the cleaning service. I remember you selling your wedding ring to pay for my college application fees. The memories hit hard. I thought I'd hidden the struggles better. But you never complained, he continued. Never told me we were struggling because of Dad's choices. Instead, you let me believe in a hero while you quietly played the role of one. I just wanted you to have something to be proud of, I whispered. I am proud, Michael's voice cracked. But not of him. I'm proud of you, and it's time you had something to be proud of too. He pulled one more document from the envelope, a press release. My company's charitable foundation, he explained. We're launching a new program for single parents paying off a family member's debts. It's called the Helen Morrison Fund, named after the strongest person I know. The tears came again, but different this time. Lighter somehow. The truth is, Michael continued, I've known something was wrong with Dad's story for years. Little things didn't add up. But I never pushed because I saw how much it hurt you to talk about him. When did you figure it out? Pieces over time, but the letter confirmed everything. And then I found the payment records you'd hidden in the attic. 30 years of receipts, Mom. 30 years of sacrifice. Through the kitchen door, I could hear Emma and her brother laughing with Sarah in the living room, the sound of a happy, whole family, the kind I've fought so hard to give Michael. I said slowly, that if you knew the truth about your father, it would break you. That you needed a hero to look up to. I had one. He squeezed my hand. She just didn't wear a uniform or have any medals. She wore an apron and carried a serving tray. I looked down at the documents again, at the future I'd sacrificed laid out in black and white. The money, I started, is yours. No arguments, and before you say it's too much, it's not charity. It's justice. It's what you should have had if Dad had made different choices. A lifetime of scrimping, of counting pennies, of working through exhaustion and pain crashed over me. I don't know how to not struggle anymore, I admitted. Michael smiled, his father's smile, but somehow warmer. Truer. That's why I'm here, to help you learn how to live instead of just survive. The kitchen clock chimed, marking the hour. 30 years ago, almost to the minute, I'd found James's body and the letter that would change our lives. Now, in the same kitchen, life was changing again. One more thing, Michael said, reaching for his briefcase one final time. The story we tell the kids about Dad. That's your choice. Whatever you think is right. I thought about Emma and her brother. About the weight of lies and the price of truth. We'll tell them a different kind of hero story, I decided. About a grandmother who loved their father so much she gave up everything to give him a future. Sometimes that's what real heroes do, they sacrifice in silence. Michael nodded, understanding perfectly, just like he always had, even when I thought I was fooling him. Happy Thanksgiving, Mom, he said softly. Let's make the next 30 years better than the last. Through the tears, I smiled. For the first time in 3 decades, the future looked brighter than the past. The following morning, I woke up to an unfamiliar sensation: peace. For 30 years, I'd started each day with the heavy weight of secrets and survival pressing down on me. But now, watching the sun rise through my kitchen window, I felt lighter. Michael and his family had stayed overnight, something they'd never done before, because my small house couldn't comfortably accommodate them. But last night, no one complained about the cramped quarters or the worn-out sofa bed. Morning, Mom. Michael padded into the kitchen, already dressed for his morning run. Sleep okay? Better than I have in years, I admitted, pouring him coffee into one of my chipped mugs. Though that might change once I really process everything from last night. He smiled, accepting the coffee. I have something else to show you. Want to take a walk? Outside, the November air was crisp and clean. Michael led me down the familiar streets of the neighborhood I'd never been able to leave. The house where James died had become both my prison and my shelter. We turned a corner, and he stopped in front of a beautiful craftsman-style house with a sold sign in the yard. Sarah and I bought it last month, he said quietly. It's a few blocks from your current house. Close enough to keep your routines, far enough to feel like a fresh start. Michael. Before you say no, look at the yard. He pointed to the sprawling garden space. Perfect for those tomatoes you never had room to grow. And there's a proper kitchen, so you can teach Emma how to bake. Plus, he grinned, a guest suite for when we visit. No more sofa bed. I stared at the house, remembering all the times I'd walked past it, dreaming of a different life. The money you gave me, I can't, is enough to buy 10 houses like this, he finished, but this one's already yours. Consider it 30 years of missed Mother's Day presents. A car door slammed behind us. Sarah was walking over, carrying a thick folder. The renovation plans, she explained, hugging me good morning. Only if you want them, of course. But I remember you mentioning once how you'd always wanted a bay window for reading. They thought of everything. I'd probably been planning this for months, while I continued serving coffee and making beds at my second job, unaware my life was about to change. There's something else, Michael said as we walked back. The Helen Morrison Fund, it's not just financial support. We're setting up counseling services, career training, legal aid. Everything I wish you'd had 30 years ago. Your father would hate all of this, I said suddenly, then froze. It was the first time I'd ever spoken ill of James to Michael. But my son just laughed. Good. Let him hate it from wherever he is. You spent 30 years protecting his reputation. Time to build your own. Back at my small house, Emma and her brother were awake, devouring leftover turkey sandwiches for breakfast. Grandma. Emma called out. Dad said we're helping you move. Can I have your old room for sleepovers? Looking around my kitchen, at the cracked tiles I'd never been able to replace, the ancient stove that only worked on 2 burners, the window that never quite closed properly, I realized I was ready to leave the past behind, ready to stop paying for James's sins. Yes, I told my granddaughter. Yes, you can have the room. But first, you need to hear a story about your grandmother. The real story. Michael touched my shoulder. Mom, you don't have to. I do, I said firmly. No more lies. No more hiding. I sat down at my scared kitchen table one last time. Kids, let me tell you about the year I was your age, when something very hard happened, and I had to make a choice. As I spoke, watching understanding dawn in my grandchildren's eyes, I felt the final weights of the past lifting. James's letter and all its painful revelations could stay buried in the attic of this old house. In my new home, I would carry only the truth and the pride of knowing that sometimes the biggest act of love is letting go of a lie. And that, I concluded, hugging my grandchildren close, is what real heroes do. They face the truth, no matter how hard it is. Just like you did, Grandma, Emma whispered. Yes, I thought, just like I finally did. Another refill, hon? I asked, holding up the coffee pot. The businessman barely looked up from his laptop, just nodding while continuing to type. I topped off his cup, just like I'd done thousands of times before at Joe's diner. My hands weren't as steady as they used to be. 40 years of carrying plates will do that to you. But I still managed not to spill a drop. Small victories, right? Mom, please tell me you're not working tonight. David's voice came through my ancient flip phone during my break. My son, always worried about me. Just until 3, I said, counting my morning tips. Gotta keep busy somehow. He sighed that familiar sigh. You don't need to work anymore. I've told you. I know, sweetheart, but these old bones like to stay moving. I didn't mention that Patricia, his wife, had made it clear during Thanksgiving that a mother-in-law who still serves tables at her age was hardly the sort of family connection she wanted to advertise to her country club friends. Well, you're coming to dinner tonight, right? The car will pick you up at 4. I smiled, tucking a $5 bill into my apron pocket. I can drive myself, David. My Corolla still runs just fine. Mom, his tone was firm. Let me do this. Please? How could I refuse? This boy had been trying to take care of me since he was 10 years old, when his father walked out and left us with nothing but debt and broken promises. Okay, 4 o'clock. I glanced at my watch. Gotta go. Honorable Table 6 needs their check. See you tonight. And Mom, wear that blue dress I got you for your birthday. I hung up, wondering why the dress mattered. But David had always been particular about details. It's what made him such a successful investment banker. The rest of my shift passed in the usual blur of coffee refills, burger orders, and how's everything tasting pokes. I'd been at Joe's so long, I could probably do the job in my sleep. At 3, I changed out of my uniform in the tiny employee bathroom, carefully applying the department store makeup Patricia had given me last party, with a card that read, "Every woman deserves to look her best." The blue dress fit perfectly. David always remembered my size, even though I saw him more in FaceTime calls than in person these days. The car that arrived wasn't the usual town car service David used. This was a sleek black Mercedes with a driver in a proper uniform. Mrs. Chen, he said, opening the door. Mr. David sent me personally. Something was definitely up. The drive to David's mansion in Greenwich took almost an hour. I remembered when he first bought it 5 years ago, how proud he was to show me every room. Patricia had redecorated twice since then, each time more extravagant than the last. Grandma, my granddaughter Sophie, flew down the steps as the car pulled up. At 16, she was the spitting image of David at that age. Same determined chin, same kind eyes. There's my girl. I hugged her tight, breathing in her expensive perfume. You've grown again. Mom. David appeared in the doorway, handsome in a tailored suit. You look beautiful. Patricia appeared behind him, perfect as always in designer clothes that probably cost more than I made in a year. Helen, she air-kissed my cheeks. That dress is quaint, but we really must take you shopping somewhere more upscale soon. The dress is perfect, David said firmly, giving his wife a look I couldn't quite interpret. Mom, come inside. There's something we need to discuss before the other guests arrive. Other guests? This was getting stranger by the minute. David's study was my favorite room in the house, the only one Patricia hadn't redecorated. Dark wood shelves lined with books, a worn leather sofa where I used to read to him as a child. And I stopped short. On his desk was an old shoebox I recognized instantly. You kept it, I whispered. David picked up the box carefully. Every receipt, every bank statement, every investment record from the past 30 years. Patricia frowned. Darling, are we really doing this now? The Carmichaels will be here any minute, and you know how they hate to be kept waiting. Yes, David said quietly. We're doing this now. He turned to me. Sit down, Mom. Please. I sank into the leather sofa, my legs suddenly weak. Sophie perched next to me, practically vibrating with excitement. Mom, David began, do you remember what you said to me the day Dad left? How could I forget? I said that sometimes the biggest dreams start with the smallest investments. He nodded, opening the box. I was 10 years old, watching you count out tips at the kitchen table. $67.43, and instead of using it for groceries or bills, you took me to the bank and opened my first investment account. Patricia shifted uncomfortably. She'd never heard this story. I'd made David promise not to tell anyone. Every week, he continued pulling out faded deposit slips. You put half your tips into that account. Never less than $30, even in the worst weeks, even when we barely had food in the fridge. David, I started, but he held up his hand. When I got into Harvard, he went on, everyone assumed I had a scholarship. But I didn't need one, did I, Mom? Because that tip money had grown into enough to pay my full tuition. Patricia's perfectly maintained eyebrows shot up. But you didn't stop there. David was on a roll now. When I started my first investment firm, you remortgaged your house to help with the seed money. When I nearly went bankrupt in '08, you sold your car and took the bus to work for 2 years to help keep me afloat. Any mother would have done the same, I mumbled. No, David's voice was fierce. Most mothers wouldn't work double shifts for 30 years, investing every spare penny in their child's future. Most mothers wouldn't live in the same tiny apartment, wear the same clothes, drive the same car for decades, all while quietly building an empire. Patricia's face had gone pale. Empire? What empire? David smiled, pulling out his phone. Sophie, show your grandmother her account balance. My granddaughter grinned, handing me her phone with a banking app open. The number on the screen made my coffee-worn hands shake. That's impossible. No, David said softly. That's compound interest. 40 years of careful investment managed by someone who learned everything he knows about money from watching his waitress mother count tips at the kitchen table. But Patricia's voice was faint. Helen's just a waitress? David's tone was sharp. My mother is the majority shareholder in Chen Investment Group. Every dollar she invested in me has multiplied thousands of times over. She owns 40% of my company. She just never wanted anyone to know. The room spun slightly. David, I never wanted to be rich, to be acknowledged. I know, Mom, but tonight at dinner, in front of all our high society friends, I'm announcing the establishment of the Helen Chen Foundation for Working Parents. And its first board chairperson is going to be the smartest investor I've ever known, my mother. Through my tears, I saw Patricia sink into a chair, her world clearly tilted on its axis. And this was just the beginning of the dinner party. The Carmichaels arrived first, followed by a steady stream of Greenwich's elite. I recognized some of them from magazine covers and news articles about David's success. Patricia fluttered around, playing the perfect hostess, though her smile had a strained quality I'd never seen before. Mrs. Chen, a distinguished-looking man approached me. I'm Robert Walsh from Goldman Sachs. I've been trying to meet you for years, but your son always said you were unavailable. I smoothed my blue dress nervously. I usually am. The dinner rush waits for no one. He laughed, then realized I wasn't joking. You really do still work as a waitress, even with your net worth. Best way to stay grounded, I said simply. And I like making people smile, even if it's just over a good cup of coffee. More guests gathered around as word spread about who I was. The questions came rapid fire, about my investment strategy, about raising a financial prodigy, about why I'd kept my wealth secret. From across the room, I caught David watching me with a proud smile. Sophie stood beside him, recording everything on her phone. Mom, she'd said earlier this is going viral for sure. #Secret Millionaire Waitress is totally trending tonight. Patricia appeared at my elbow with a glass of champagne. Helen, perhaps we should all move to the dining room. Her voice was honey sweet, but I caught the tension underneath. This wasn't how she planned to spend the evening, watching her embarrassing mother-in-law become the center of attention. Of course, I said kindly, no need to rub it in. The food smells wonderful, dear. The dining room was a showcase of Patricia's expensive taste. Crystal glasses, fine china, and an enormous table dripping with ornaments that probably cost more than my monthly rent. But as we sat down, I noticed something different about the place settings. I touched the simple white plates at each place. From Joe's Diner, David finished. I bought them this morning. Tonight, we're eating off the same plates that helped build this fortune. Patricia's face went slightly green. Several guests exchanged glances, but Robert Walsh broke into a broad grin. Brilliant, he declared. Keeping it real, that's why Chen Investments outperforms everyone else. As the first course was served, David stood and clinked his glass. Before we begin, I'd like to tell you a story about my mother. I tried to wave him off, but he continued. When I was 12, I wanted to buy stock in a new company called Apple. Mom had saved about $2,000 in my investment account, serious money for us back then. The financial advisor at our local bank told her it was too risky, that a single mother should make safer choices. He paused, letting the memory settle. Mom thanked him politely, then walked across the street and opened an account at a different bank that would let her buy the stock. She told me something I've never forgotten. Sometimes the biggest risks look like the safest choices, and the safest choices are the biggest risks. Patricia shifted in her seat. She criticized my lack of sophistication about money for years. That $2,000 in Apple stock, David continued, it's worth over $4 million today. But more importantly, it taught me to trust my instincts, to look beyond conventional wisdom. Everything I know about investing, I learned from watching a waitress trust her gut. But surely, one of Patricia's friends interrupted, you've tried to get your mother to retire, to live more, appropriately for someone of her means. Before David could answer, I spoke up. Why would I retire from something I love? Every day, I get to make people's lives a little better, even if it's just with a warm smile and a hot cup of coffee. No amount of money can buy that kind of satisfaction. The table fell silent. Then Sophie stood up, raising her glass. To Grandma Helen, who taught us that true wealth isn't about what you have, but about what you give. To Helen, the table echoed, even Patricia, though she looked like she'd bitten into something sour. As dinner progressed, I watched my daughter-in-law struggle to process this new reality. The mother-in-law she'd been quietly ashamed of for years was actually wealthier than most of her society friends. During dessert, she finally cracked. But why? She burst out. Why keep serving tables when you could have lived like you? I finished gently. Patricia, honey, I grew up poor. Really poor. My parents worked themselves to death trying to give me a better life. When I had David, I promised myself two things: that he would have every opportunity I didn't, and that I would never forget where I came from. David reached over and squeezed my hand. Every time I serve a young mother struggling to afford breakfast for her kids, every time I see someone counting change to make sure they can leave a tip, I remember. And sometimes, just sometimes, their check mysteriously gets taken care of. That's worth more than all the country club memberships in the world. Patricia's eyes filled with tears, real ones, not the social kind she usually deployed. I've been horrible to you. No, I corrected her. You've been who you were raised to be, just like I have. Maybe now we can both learn something from each other. Robert Walsh cleared his throat. Mrs. Chen, would you consider joining our board of directors? We could use someone with your perspective. Before I could answer, David laughed. Get in line, Bob. Mom's already on the board of 3 major banks and 2 Fortune 500 companies. She just does all the meetings via phone between lunch and dinner shifts. The table erupted in amazed laughter. Even Patricia managed a genuine smile. Actually, I said, I'm thinking of cutting back to part-time at the diner. There's this foundation my son is starting that could use some hands-on leadership. Sophie squealed and hugged me. Does this mean you'll finally let me post about you on Instagram? One condition, I teased. You have to come work a shift with me at Joe's first. See how the other half lives. Deal, she said instantly. Mom, you should come too. Patricia opened her mouth to refuse, then paused. You know what? Maybe I should. Clearly, I have a lot to learn about what real success looks like. As the evening wound down, I looked around the table at these wealthy, powerful people eating off diner plates and listening to a waitress's wisdom, and I thought about all the twists life can take. Sometimes the richest moments come with the smallest price tag, and sometimes the best investments aren't the ones you can list on a balance sheet. The next morning, I showed up for my regular holiday day shift at Joe's Diner. Old habits die hard, and besides, holiday tips were always good. But this time, I had company. Mom, you're really going through with this. Patricia stood awkwardly in the diner's back room, staring at the spare uniform I brought her. Sophie was already changing into hers, excited despite the early hour. Consider it your first board meeting for the Helen Chen Foundation. I smiled, handing her a notepad and pen. We help working parents, right? Well, let's see what they really need. Joe himself was working the grill just as he had every holiday for 30 years. He'd been there on my first day, taught me everything I knew about the service industry. When he saw my entourage, he nearly dropped his spatula. "Helen, is that your daughter-in-law? The one whoa." "Yes." I cut him off before he could repeat some of Patricia's less flattering comments from previous visits. "She and Sophie are training today." The breakfast rush was steady. People who had nowhere else to go on holiday morning, workers heading to their own shifts, families grabbing a cheap meal before expensive celebrations later. Patricia watched me work with new eyes, noticing how I remembered every regular's order, every dietary restriction, every little detail that made them feel seen. Mrs. C, a young woman, walked in with two small children. Jenny, a single mom working 3 jobs to make ends meet. "Happy holidays." "Happy party, honey." I hugged her. "Your usual booth is ready." Patricia followed me as I got them settled. "You know all your customers this well." "They're not customers," I corrected. "They're family. Jenny here is putting herself through nursing school." I winked at the kids. "Hot chocolate with extra marshmallows, right?" As I walked away, I heard Patricia asking Jenny about nursing school, childcare costs, the challenges of balancing work and study. Maybe she was finally getting it. Sophie turned out to be a natural, charming customer with her genuine enthusiasm and quick smile. By mid-morning, she earned more in tips than Patricia had made all day. "Grandma," she pulled me aside during a lull. "That man in booth 3, he's counting pennies for his kids' pancakes." I glanced over. A father and son, both in worn clothes, the boy staring longingly at the party decorations. "Handle it," I told her. "Trust your instincts." Sophie nodded, marched to the register, and paid their bill herself. Then she asked Joe to make up a special holiday pancake with whipped cream and sprinkles. On the house. The father's eyes welled up with tears. "Thank you," he whispered. "It's been a rough year." "Sometimes," Sophie told him, using my own words, "the smallest kindness can make the biggest difference." Patricia watched the exchange, absently rubbing her aching feet. "I never understood before," she admitted, "why you kept working here when you didn't need to. But it's not about the money, is it?" "Never was," I agreed. "Money's just a tool. What matters is how you use it to touch lives." By the time we closed at 2, Patricia had learned more than just how to carry plates without dropping them. She'd learned names, stories, dreams. She'd seen how many people struggled to leave even small tips, how a kind word could brighten a hard day, how community happens in the most unexpected places. "Mom," she said as we hung up our aprons, and I noticed it was the first time she'd ever called me that instead of Helen. "I'd like to make Joe's Diner the first official partner of the foundation. We could set up a scholarship fund for employees and regulars. Like Jenny." I hugged her, feeling decades of tension melt away. "Welcome to the family business." "The real family business," Sophie added. "Not the investment firm, the business of investing in people." As we left the diner, I saw David waiting outside with the car. He took one look at his exhausted wife and daughter in waitress uniforms and broke into a huge grin. He said, hugging us all. "Learn anything?" Patricia kissed his cheek. "Only that your mother is the richest woman I know, and it has nothing to do with her bank account." "Finally figured that out, did you?" He laughed. "Only took you 15 years. We drove home together, 3 generations forever changed by one holiday shift at a small diner. Sometimes the best gifts can't be wrapped, and the greatest wealth isn't counted in dollars and cents. It's measured in lives touched, hopes restored, and bridges built between worlds that only seem far apart." The email from my publisher sat unopened in my inbox for 3 hours. After a decade of rejection letters, writer's block, and late-night editing sessions, my debut novel was finally getting published. But instead of celebrating, I was hiding in my home office, dreading the inevitable fallout. "Just open it, Kate," I whispered to myself, clicking on the message that would confirm my launch date. June 15th. The words blazed on my screen like a warning sign. My phone buzzed immediately, as if my mother-in-law Margaret had some sixth sense for moments she could ruin. "Family emergency," the text read. "Come to my house now." I learned in 6 years of marriage that Margaret's emergencies usually involved her daughter Jessica's latest life event. Last month's emergency was choosing the right shade of pink for Jessica's nursery for her 3rd child. Still, I grabbed my keys and headed over, my good news burning unshared in my chest. Margaret's Tudor-style mansion loomed ahead, a testament to old money and even older expectations. Jessica's car was already in the driveway, along with my husband Tom's. Great. An ambush. Finally, Margaret swooped down as I entered, her designer perfume choking the air. Jessica has the most wonderful news. Jessica sat on the antique sofa, one hand resting on her barely visible bump, the other holding a crystal glass of sparkling water. We found out it's a girl. That's great, I managed, though they'd known the gender for weeks. We're having a surprise baby shower, Margaret announced. June 15th. Everyone who matters will be there. The date get me like a physical blow. June 15th? But that's perfect, Jessica clapped. It's a Saturday and I'll be showing just enough. Tom wouldn't meet my eyes. He knew what that date meant. We talked about potential launch dates for months. I can't come, I said quietly. That's my book launch date. The room temperature dropped 10 degrees. Your what? Margaret's voice could have frozen hell. My book. It's being published. The launch is scheduled for June 15th. Jessica's face crumpled. You're choosing your little book over my baby shower. Little book, 10 years of work flashed before my eyes. This isn't some hobby, Jessica. This is my career. Career? Margaret laughed. Darling, writing isn't a career. It's what bored housewives do between charity luncheons. I looked at Tom, silently pleading for support. He shifted uncomfortably. Maybe you could reschedule, he suggested. The publisher might be flexible. Reschedule a national book launch? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Do you have any idea how publishing works? Well, I know about real business, Margaret sniffed. Thomas's father and I built an actual company, not some fantasy stories. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone. You want to talk about reality, Margaret? Let's talk about how you've tried to sabotage my writing from day one. I opened my archived messages. 3 years ago. Writers are parasites, dear. They just leech off their hard-working husbands. 2 years ago. Jessica's pregnant again. You can finally give up that writing nonsense and focus on starting a real family. The messages went on and on. Every discouraging comment, every backhanded compliment, every attempt to schedule emergency family meetings during my writing time, all carefully saved. I've kept everything, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Every text, every email, every voicemail where you told me I was wasting my time. Would you like me to share them at Jessica's shower? I'm sure your country club friends would love to hear your thoughts on cultural parasites and real jobs. Margaret's face went white. You wouldn't dare. Try me. I'm done letting you dismiss my dreams. Jessica burst into tears. Mom, she's threatening to ruin my shower. Thomas, Margaret turned to my husband. Control your wife. Tom finally looked up, his face unreadable. Actually, Mom, I've read Kate's book. It's brilliant, and it's time you both showed her some respect. Margaret recoiled as if slapped. Respect? For what? Scribbling stories while Jessica has been building a family. 3 children, Thomas. Your sister has given us 3 grandchildren while your wife plays at being an author. I stood up, my phone clutched like a weapon. You know what? I've got copies of everything. Every nasty comment about my hobby. Every time you told Tom I was embarrassing the family. Every manipulative message about how real women focus on babies, not books. Those were private conversations, Margaret sputtered. And my launch is a private event. Stay away from it or I'll show everyone exactly who you are. Jessica leaped up. Mom, she can't talk to you like that. Actually, I smiled, feeling years of suppressed anger bubble up. I can. And I will. June 15th is my launch date. Have your shower another day. If you do this, Margaret's voice shook with rage, if you choose your book over this family. You'll what? Tell everyone I'm not a real Matthews. Turn the family against me? Newsflash, Margaret, you've been doing that since the day I married Tom. The only difference now is I'm done pretending it doesn't happen. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Jessica. Congratulations on your 3rd girl. I'm sure she'll grow up learning exactly what her grandmother thinks about women with ambitions beyond baby showers. As I walked out, Tom right behind me, I heard Margaret's shrill voice. Thomas, get back here. But for the first time in our marriage, he didn't turn around. In the car, my hands shook as I forwarded all the archived messages to my computer. I just declared war on your mother. Tom reached over and squeezed my hand. No, you just stood up to a bully, and I should have done it years ago. My phone buzzed with messages from Margaret and Jessica, but I ignored them. Instead, I opened my publisher's email and clicked accept on the launch date. June 15th would be interesting, one way or another. The weeks leading up to June 15th were a masterclass in psychological warfare. Margaret, realizing her direct attacks had failed, switched to more subtle tactics. She began hosting tearful family meetings, where Jessica would break down about her ruined shower plans. The caterer can't change the date. Jessica sobbed during Sunday dinner, and all the good venues are booked. I kept writing down every manipulation attempt, every guilt trip, every tearful phone call. My publisher had already started promoting the launch and early reviews were coming in strong. But Margaret had launched her own campaign. Did you hear? My neighbor caught me getting the mail. Jessica's having complications. Margaret says the shower might be her only chance to celebrate before bed rest. I checked with Jessica's doctor, a family friend who was tired of Margaret's games. No complications, no bed rest, just more lies. Then came the social media assault. Jessica started posting daily countdown updates to her special day, tagging every family member except me. Margaret shared old family photos, all carefully selected to exclude me, with captions about real family values and priorities. They're getting desperate, Tom said, scrolling through his phone. Mom's calling my cousins now, telling them you're having a mental breakdown. I was in my office, finalizing my launch speech when the first bookstore cancellation call came. I'm so sorry, the owner sounded genuinely apologetic. But Mrs. Matthews called. She said your family is planning legal action if we host your launch. Something about defamation. 3 more bookstores called that day. Margaret had been busy. Enough, I said, picking up my phone. I called my publisher. Actually, my editor said after hearing the situation, this could work in our favor. How do you feel about changing venues? The next day, invitations went out for my book launch, now being held at the city's largest independent bookstore, owned by a friend who'd been on the receiving end of Margaret's social climbing attempts last year. Let her try her threats here. Diana, the owner, laughed. I got voicemails of her begging me to host her garden club after the country club banned them. Should we play those at the launch? Margaret's response was immediate. She sent out baby shower invitations to every person on my launch guest list, including my publisher and local media contacts. Same time, same day, Jessica posted smugly on Facebook, "Family comes first." But they'd underestimated how many people were tired of the Matthews family drama. RSVPs for my launch poured in, including several of Margaret's closest friends who'd apparently been keeping receipts of their own. Your mother-in-law told my daughter she was too fat to be in Jessica's wedding, one society matron confided. We've been waiting years for someone to stand up to her. A week before the launch, Margaret played her final card. She showed up at my house with Tom's father in tow. Kate, Richard looked uncomfortable. This feud has gone too far. The family name is being damaged by your wife, not me, I interrupted, pulling out my phone. Would you like to hear what Margaret told the bookstores? Or should we start with what she's been saying about my mental health? Richard turned to Margaret. You did what? It was for Jessica. Margaret's mask cracked. That ungrateful little writer has been trying to steal attention from our daughter's special day. 3rd baby shower, I corrected. For her 3rd child. Which, by the way, isn't even due for 5 more months. Richard's face darkened. Margaret, we're leaving. Now. He turned to me. I'll handle the bookstores. Your launch will proceed as planned. As they left, I heard him say, do you realize we could be sued for defamation? The day before my launch, Jessica made one last attempt. She called Tom, crying about spotty in hospital visits. Tom called her doctor again. She hadn't been to the hospital in months. Your sister's lying could actually harm her pregnancy, the doctor warned Tom. This level of stress and manipulation isn't healthy for anyone. That evening, as Tom and I were finalizing launch details, Margaret sent a mass text to the entire family. Emergency family meeting tomorrow at 2 p.m. Attendance mandatory for all true family members. I responded to all, can't attend. I'll be at my book launch. But don't worry, I've kept recordings of every emergency family meeting for the past 6 years. I'm sure they'll make fascinating material for my next book. The responses were immediate. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years suddenly wanted to attend my launch. Aunts and uncles started sharing stories of Margaret's past manipulations. Even Jessica's husband messaged privately, is it too late to RSVP for the launch? I'm tired of these games. What do you think I'll do tomorrow? Tom asked as we went to bed. I shoved in my phone, where RSVPs for my launch had outpaced Jessica's shower 3-1. I think I'll finally learn that actions have consequences. Mom's never learned that lesson before. She's never had an audience for her behavior before, I replied. Tomorrow, everyone will see exactly who Margaret Matthews really is. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a final text from Margaret. You'll regret this. Family remembers betrayal. I screenshotted the message and added it to my folder. Tomorrow would either heal this family or break it completely. Either way, I was done being silenced. Ready for tomorrow? Tom asked, pulling me close. I thought about my book, about the story I fought to tell despite years of discouragement and manipulation. More than ready. It's time everyone heard the truth. All of it. As I drifted off to sleep, my phone lit up with one last message, this time from Jessica's husband. Margaret's planning something for tomorrow. Thought you should know. I smiled in the darkness. Let her plan. I had 10 years of receipts ready to go. Tomorrow would be interesting indeed. The morning of June 15th arrived with two surprises. First, my book had already hit the regional bestseller list based on pre-orders alone. Second, Margaret and Jessica were nowhere to be seen. Too quiet, Tom muttered as we set up at the bookstore. Mom never gives up this easily. He was right. Just as the launch was about to begin, with nearly 200 people packed into Diana's bookstore, Margaret made her grand entrance. She swept in wearing funeral black, Jessica sobbing beside her, both carrying stacks of papers. We're here to stop this farce, Margaret announced, brandishing the papers. These are cease and desist letters. My lawyer says Kate's book is a malicious attack on our family. I smiled, stepping up to the podium. Actually, Margaret, my book is a fantasy novel about a young woman discovering her power. You haven't even read it. But your next book, Jessica wailed, you threatened to write about us. The crowd murmured. Several phones appeared, recording the drama. You're right, I said calmly. I did consider writing about this family. In fact, I pulled out my phone, connecting it to the bookstore's speaker system. Let's give everyone a preview. Margaret lunged forward. Don't you dare. But I was done being silenced. I played the recordings, years of verbal abuse, manipulation, and threats. With each clip, Margaret's face grew paler. When I reached her bookstore threats, several literary agents in the audience shook their heads in disgust. Enough. Richard's voice boomed from the entrance. He strode in, followed by Jessica's husband, Mark. Margaret, Jessica, get in the car. Now. But Daddy, Jessica started. Now. Richard rarely raised his voice. Your mother's actions could get us sued. And you? He turned to Jessica. Lying about medical emergencies? What were you thinking? As security escorted them out, Margaret turned back. This isn't over. Actually, it is, I replied. Check social media. Your emergency family meeting is trending locally. Apparently, several guests live-streamed your performance. The launch proceeded beautifully after that. I read from my actual novel, signed hundreds of books, and received an offer for a 3-book deal. But the real victory came later that evening. Tom's phone rang during the after-party. It was Richard. Your mother's going to therapy, he announced without preamble. Non-negotiable. And Jessica's doctor read her the riot act about faking pregnancy complications. Dad, I'm sorry it came to this, Tom began. Don't be, it's been coming for years. Kate, he addressed me directly. I should have stopped this behavior long ago. I hope someday you can forgive us. 3 months later, my book hit the national bestseller list. Margaret, after intensive therapy, sent a handwritten apology, her therapist's idea, but still progress. Jessica's third daughter was born healthy, though the birth announcement came without any manipulation or drama. You know what's funny? I said to Tom one evening, showing him my latest royalty check. If your mom hadn't tried so hard to stop the launch, it probably wouldn't have gotten so much attention. Poetic justice, he laughed. Speaking of justice, Mom asked if we're coming to Christmas this year. I thought about it. On one condition, no emergency family meetings. Deal, though I have to ask. He picked up my latest manuscript. Is this one really about a manipulative mother-in-law? No, I smiled. But my third book might be. I got plenty of material. We both laughed, knowing that while the family would never be perfect, at least now it was honest. Sometimes the best stories aren't the ones we write. They're the ones we live through, stand up for, and finally tell. As for Margaret, she joined a support group for controlling mothers-in-law. Apparently, she's now the cautionary tale they use in meetings. Sometimes the best revenge is letting someone become their own punchline.